Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today we have author Kenna Sosa. Kenna Sosa is a school librarian by day and a writer by night who absolutely adores words. She also loves playing the drums. She earned her bachelor's degree from Our Lady of the Lake University and her master's degree in bilingual education from Southern Methodist University. Her first children's book, Ray Antonio and Ray Feo, was born of the celebration of her childhood in San Antonio. Her second book, Kindertransport A Child's Journey, was about the escape of children on the Kindertransport train just before the outbreak of World War II. The Unhuggables is her newest release, featuring a young boy who transforms his feelings into animals, unhuggable animals at that. It is a tender story of patience, love, and the hugs ideal for all young readers. Kenna Sosa has lived in Japan and Mexico, but sharing her stories with her two sons and other eager readers has been her favorite adventure yet. Welcome, Kenna Sosa. Yeah, it's nice to have you here. You know, I'm truly honored and it's a blessing to be able to talk to you tonight. So tell me, a master's degree in bilingual education, I mean, first off, that sounds exciting, and it sounds like you have to learn a lot of languages in order to accomplish that. How many languages did you learn or do you speak?
Well, don't be fooled. I am bilingual in English and Spanish. I'm actually a certified bilingual librarian in the district where I work. I do teach in English and Spanish all day. And I used to be pretty good at Japanese when I lived there, but I was an exchange student 20 years ago. So I won't give myself full credit for that, but I can hold a light level conversation. I just love languages. I would love to learn another one even now.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. So I'm actually married to a Spanish woman. My wife is from South America. So, you know, I always tell her, I was like, I know enough Spanish to know if you're talking about me or not. I can tell you that. But I also have lived in Germany for 13 years as well, too. So I did kind of dabble in some German. And the interesting thing about languages is that whenever you learn one, you can kind of learn two or three because there's a lot of similarities. How do you find that, or that, you know, similarities within languages?
I think they're fascinating. They're little keys to history, basically.
Okay.
Learning Spanish, I found that, I would love to learn French. And of course, I don't understand a lick of it when I hear it, but when I see it, I can recognize the Latin roots and I can decipher some of it. Italian is very similar to Spanish, so I can actually understand a lot of Italian when it's written. It's all related and intertwined, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
Of course, there's dialects. I went to Spain over the summer last year, and of course, the Spanish in Spain is different from the Spanish I'm used to in Mexico. So it's the key to a people, basically. There's always something still to learn.
Yeah. Spain is absolutely amazing. So I took a 4-day trip to Spain one time, and we went to LSRT. And then we went to Barcelona on a day trip. And, I mean, I don't remember much of it because I drank sangria. I drank so much sangria. I didn't remember much of it. So, but I do remember drinking sangria, eating paella, going out to the beach, and then having a great time walking around shopping. And Spain is one of those really great places to visit. I know that for sure.
Yes, it's incredible.
All right, so I think that you have books that are translated into multiple languages as well, too, if I'm not mistaken.
I have, Ray Antonio and Ray Feo is a bilingual picture book. So it was written originally in English, and then I also wrote it in Spanish. So the book has both in the same book. You don't have to get an English version and a Spanish version. At this point, that's my only bilingual book. However, I have done translations before. I was working with an independent publisher doing all of her Spanish translations for a while, which was really interesting and fun. And then I worked with a lady who was teaching language through her books. And so I did some basic Japanese translations for her.
That's awesome.
I'd love to see my other books come out in other languages, but at this time, that's up to the publisher.
Okay. So you're traditionally published or are you independently published?
I am traditionally published. I have, between the three books, I have two publishers. The first is for RV Publishing out of Oklahoma, and that's the publisher for my first two books. So for both Ray Antonio and Raphael, and also the Kindertransport book, which there's exciting news about lately too. And then the third book, The Unhuggables, is with River Road Press out of New Orleans. So they're all Southern publishers, but they are traditional regional publishers. And I've been very grateful for that experience. I've learned a lot from each of them.
Yeah. So what was that process like? Did they reach out to you, or did you try to seek out a publisher? How did that process look like for you?
Well, I've always written primarily for myself, because I think when you are truly a writer, or if you're truly a painter, you're truly a dancer, you're going to do it anyway, because that creative part of you has to come out in one way or another. You really can't contain it.
Yeah.
So I write anyway, and I'm going to continue to write anyway, no matter what happens. But so I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I've been writing since I was a teenager. And I just got to the point where I said, let's see what happens. Let me start sending some things out and see what happens. And even if nothing happens, I'm still going to do it anyway. So I sent all the manuscripts out. The first was Ray Antonio Raphael, and I got the contract in 2015 on that. Just amazing. I couldn't believe that it was a reality, that I was going to be published. It was so incredibly exciting.
It's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yes. I had no idea it takes so long to publish a book, though. Traditionally speaking, the contract is really exciting, and then you have to reel in your excitement, because it's going to be a while before it's out.
Yeah.
And then Kindertransport, I got the contract on, I think in 2017. That came out a lot quicker, but I originally had that one as a picture book, believe it or not, because I have a short attention span. So I like picture books for that reason.
Yeah.
And so they accepted it as a picture book. But then when it was time for editing, they requested that I expound on it and make a chapter book. They felt that the story would be better told that way. And I about had a panic attack because I didn't know if I could do it. But I did it, and I'm so ridiculously happy I did, because it just won the Children's Literary Classics Award for historical fiction. So I'm just elated, and I'm glad that they forced me against my will, because it really did make it a better book. And then the River Road Press, the Unhuggables, I was actually doing events with another author, and he was just bragging about his publisher. And I said, well, what the heck? I have this story. I'm going to send it and see what happens. And he called me the same week, which is a shocker because that never happens.
That's awesome.
Yes. And it came out incredibly fast. So it's always a new adventure, and you just kind of go with it.
Yeah. I was approached one time when I was trying to get traditionally published. I'm independently published, and I chose to remain that way. So I know that there's a balance between being traditionally published and independently published. It's kind of you gotta, I guess, kind of take a look at what your goals are. Mm-hmm. So for me, as a nonfiction author, I have different goals. So I chose to remain independently published. So when I went down that route, what I discovered is that the publisher was really just more interested in my content and not me as an author, just my content. So what do you see as the future for independently published authors? So you're traditional. Do you see a future for independently published authors, or do you see any challenges there?
I definitely do, because even over the past few years, just meeting, greeting lots of authors at multi-author events, we talk to each other and we get each other's feedback and experience. And I can say that there's definitely benefits to being an independent author. It seems like you probably retain more of your rights on the author, whereas I have to ask. I've had people ask if these will come out in ebooks, and I have to say, I don't know. That's up to the publisher. That's not an answer I can give.
Do you feel limited by going with a publisher? Do you feel liberated, or?
It's a mixture of both, and maybe that's my own self-imposed limitations, because I'm very careful to make sure I stay within my contract and I follow the guidelines, because someone gives you an opportunity, you need to be respectful, and you need to also fulfill your obligations to them. So I always check and email and say, hey, I have this idea, is that something I'm allowed to do? Would you support me in that?
Okay.
Really depends on the publisher and what they will support you and not support you doing. the day they want you to sell books and they want the book to do well. So usually they're supportive.
Right, I understand. Have you ever experienced maybe a conflict of interest or anything like that, or no?
With the publisher, well, I mean, me being stubborn and not wanting to rewrite the book into a chapter.
Mm.
Overall, I mean, I've had pretty positive experiences so far. I'm not sure if that's the standard experience that writers have. I just know my experience.
Mhm.
I know, for example, there's the first books clauses that sometimes apply to contracts. And so, I don't like the waiting around for them to answer me before I can shop something somewhere else.
Right, I understand.
Things like that. But, at the end of the day, as long as you follow the rules, you can still do it.
Right. Yeah, it makes absolute sense. There's many opportunities for children's authors to set an example for young readers. And I know within your books, you definitely set an example for your young readers. So what is the primary message or the goal that you have for young readers that read your books?
Well, that's a strange question because they're also different. But
Mm,
I think that the need for knowledge and the adventure. I think a lot of kids look at life as this wide-eyed, fantastic adventure. And I hope that even when my subjects are serious, that the tone is still that way. Um, Ray Antonio and Raphael is very much like that. The two brothers are having this sibling rivalry, but on the backdrop of Fiesta in San Antonio, which is absolutely marvelous. So even though they've got their own little rivalry, they're experiencing this magical, wonderful thing, which teaches you about the city. The Unhuggables, it's a kid who doesn't want to be hugged. He's upset. He's still a kid. And so he's expressing it in a kid way of like, I'm going to be this, crazy animal and I'm going to jump around and I'm going to do this and I'm going to dance back and forth. So it still has a magical element to it, even though he's upset.
mm-hmm.
Even in the Kindertransport, it's a tough topic, but the main character, she's got her eyes open. She's still got her eyes open to what's going on around her. And is there something I'm missing? Is there something I'm not? The world is an incredibly huge and amazing place if you just keep your eyes wide open like a child.
Mm. It's interesting that you say that. So looking through the lens of a child, it seems like that could really go anywhere. That book actually sounds like it could be potentially a series. Do you have any plans for making that book into a series or putting your characters in different scenarios or situations or something?
For the Kindertransport,
Yes.
I love that idea. Again, that would go back as a decision for the publisher. I've been asked that before. I'll shoot her an email about that again.
Mm.
It's funny that you mentioned that because the way that book came about, I saw a documentary about the subject on Netflix and was blown away that as much as I love history, I'd never heard of this.
Mm.
And so I started researching on my own, and then I got a grant, a Billy Levy Research and Travel grant to the Dodd Research Center in Connecticut
Mm-hmm.
to look into the subject more. So I went, and they connected me with actual Kindertransportees to interview.
Mm-hmm.
So the details of that book, while it's not a biographical story of one Kindertransportee, little details of that came straight from the actual stories of people who were on those trains as children. Because what I wanted was not to tell the story of this in a preachy adult way that has all the 2020 hindsight that we know now. I wanted it to be, what was that like as a child who obviously wouldn't know what was to come? And what would they notice? What would children notice? That would be much different than what you or I would notice.
Yeah.
So little details like the bread that they ate and the port that they came up to and what the other children were doing were little snippets that came from their interviews.
Mm-hmm.
It's told by a child, but a combination of a few children.
Mm. A lot of authors do research whenever writing their books. What type of research did you do in writing your books?
Well, in all three of them, there's a little element of research because I'm a nerd and because I like to learn. So that's how I like to do things.
Yeah.
Ray Antonio and Raphael came from basically my childhood experiences. Living in San Antonio, my father worked for a company who would have a parade party every year. And so we'd stand up on the balcony on the Riverwalk and watch the parade. It was my favorite memories with my dad growing up. But to write that book, I had to go back and research, like, okay, I know it's 10 days long, but what have I missed all these years?
Yeah.
And made sure it was all kind of factual, out of respect for the city. The Kindertransport one, I did do a very thorough research project for that, including creating those oral histories at the University of Connecticut, which are actually online. I believe you can listen to them online and hear the real interviews, which is amazing right now, especially as I understand at least one of the interviewees has passed since then. So, those details and those stories aren't lost. They were recorded and documented, and their stories were shared, and I'm grateful to be part of that. For the Unhuggables, interestingly, I had different animals picked out at first. The publisher decided that he wanted regional animals that would be found in Texas, Louisiana, southern United States. So I had to go back and figure out, okay, what would be some animals that had the same feeling? Either they have a stinger or horns, or hide and curl up in a ball like the armadillo. What could I use that would fit this story? And then research a little bit about their behaviors in order to make that work. So you always want to be factual in a way, even when you're crazy and full of imagination.
Well, I love the artwork on the Unhuggables right there. That's great. Who does your artwork in your books?
She's amazing. There's a different illustrator for every book because traditionally the publisher will choose your illustrator for you. Typically, you don't have much say in that, but I haven't had a bad illustrator to date, so I'm not complaining.
Okay.
But the Unhuggables was illustrated by Alexis Brode, who is also out of Louisiana, and she is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Talented, as you saw. But I love how she created an action sequence on the spread of every page, because Oliver is turning himself into these animals, but it's a moving setup on the page, which I think is great. And she was also very receptive to feedback. That was the only experience I had where I was allowed by that publisher to have a little bit of choice.
Yeah.
Looked at some different illustrators, and there were some doozies, but luckily I picked a fantastic one. It was one, and I'm not going to name names, but very vivid imagination, very detailed and talented artist. I will say that, very talented. But I think it would have scared the tar out of any kids that read it. It was too graphic for that.
Yeah.
But Alexis is wonderful, and she started to come out with her own books as well. So if you come across her books anywhere, please take a look. Very talented woman.
I know working with like illustrators or even ghostwriters for that matter can definitely have its challenges. Trying to get an illustrator to take your vision and turn that into something that is a visual representation of your work. It seems that your illustrator captured it spot on, and and that's an awesome talent to be able to have, to be able to take a story or a vision and bring it to life,
yes,
so to speak. And it seems like your illustrator done exactly that.
She did, and I think it's important to know, I'm not an illustrator, but through the process I've learned a lot, that they kind of go through an editing type process as well.
Yeah.
Turn in sketches, and the publisher can say, I think you really captured this, but this over here, I don't like this character. They're frumpy, or it doesn't fit the personality in the story.
Yeah.
Before their final illustrations are made, they are redirected a little bit to make sure that they mesh cohesively with the story, because I can tell you as a librarian, kids are very finicky, and so you can have the most marvelous story that was ever written, but if the illustrations aren't good, they're not going to read it. They're going to pass it right by for the one that looks more exciting.
Exactly.
And vice versa. They're going to pick up the exciting looking book, which may be a terrible story. So you have to really know the value that the illustrator adds to your work. It's invaluable.
I can definitely relate to that. And you made a key point right there, that the most important thing that any potential reader sees, the first thing they see is the book cover. Okay, and that attracts them to want to open the book and take a look at anything else that's inside the book, ranging from the book description to the illustration, before they even read any words, it's that visual stimulation that gets them to open that book.
Yes.
Okay. And it's very important. I see a lot of authors getting that absolutely wrong, where they do, I don't know, clip art for book covers. I don't get it. They're book descriptions. So when you publish your book, how much influence did you have on your book description?
Well, the blurb for Ray Antonio Raphael and Kindertransport, I wrote the blurbs for that one.
Okay.
For the Unhuggables, the publisher wrote a blurb that he wanted to use, and then he asked if I approved or if there was something that I wanted changed. That varies by publisher.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, after the cover, I think that's a very important element, because once they read the little synopsis or the blurb, they've already decided whether or not they're reading the book.
Right. So
what's inside.
Yeah, absolutely. I know when I go to bookstores and I look at books, that's one of the key things that draws me in. Before I even read a word, I'm looking at the cover, I'm looking at the description, I'm glancing over some of the stuff, and I've made decisions based on that alone. So who or what has influenced your writing?
Oh, wow. It's a very loaded question. I'd say life in general, which I know is a terrible answer, but sometimes it's my kids that inspire me in my writing. I told you that the Kindertransport was inspired by just my curiosity, and then further inspired by the people that I met and Antonio through my childhood. And Unhuggables actually was inspired by my children. My son, I was giving him a bath, and he said, "Mom, what would happen if you hugged a porcupine?" That probably hurt.
Yeah.
And then we just spouting off ideas of what other animals you shouldn't hug. And originally I was thinking something along that line of someone trying to hug all of these unhuggable creatures. Mm-hmm. I decided it needed to have more of a human element, because sometimes we feel unhuggable too. And what do we do when we feel unhuggable? And that's how the story came about. So I do tell people on the regular, because they get dragged with me to book signings and stuff, like it's his fault. And I point at him. And he used to be embarrassed, but now he loves it. He tells people, this book is my fault. Just the other day, we were at an event and we were joking back and forth, and another idea came up, and I just thought, wow, it's future author right here.
So what type of events do you go to? Do you like going out to any live events, book signings, like local open mic nights or social media type stuff or anything like that?
I definitely do. I've done a few things. TLA, as a Texas Association of School Librarians, they have a huge convention every year, statewide. It jumps city to city. So I usually try to go to that, and then I go to the exhibition hall and just try to meet people. You don't make a lot of sales that way, but you meet a lot of librarians, which is really, really valuable in our field. But I do, when I have the chance, I go out to local bookstores, Barnes & Noble, community events. The one I was at Saturdays for a little group called Semillitas, and that's a parent of one of my schools. She has a book club for kids in the community, and so we've collaborated on a few things that way. A book signing coming up this Sunday at Half Price Books at the flagship location in Dallas. Mm-hmm. So I pretty much go wherever they ask me to go. And it's not that really you're compensated for your time, but you make sales. And more importantly, you make connections.
Yes.
What I do, even
that's very important.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yes, you learn from your fellow authors at multi-author events. I've gotten a lot of ideas from talking to other authors that are there that I never would have come up with myself. So it's great for networking. But I take advantage of it too. And so even if a kid looks at the whole book and mom doesn't buy it for him, that's okay. Can we take a picture?
Yeah.
And then ask mom, is it okay if I use this picture? And then I have free PR with fresh faces smiling, holding my book on the regular. So
absolutely.
With the mindset of, how much can I get out of this event as a whole marketing strategy, then it's very valuable to go out and spend a couple hours of your time.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. I've been out to some networking events, and you're right. It's all about visibility. It's being seen out in public, making sure that you take things with you. So do you believe in book swag.
Book swag. Little. I have seen some authors with some phenomenal book swag ideas, and I'm jealous, and then I get distracted, and then I don't do them as much. Like I saw one once, I think she did it through Vistaprint,
Mm.
where she had little packages of gum, and the box was her book cover.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And I couldn't find it. I think that's what happened is I was trying to find how she did it, and I couldn't find it, and then I forgot. So now that I remember, I'm going to look at it again. um,
Yeah, I like building resources and everything, and I know book swag. I got this list of book swag of things that I'm trying to add to that list. That is definitely one of those ones I'm going to add to that list.
yes,
That's a great. It's being resourceful.
it is.
It's a very good idea.
Yeah, there's so many things you can do. I've seen there was somebody who did tattoos, fake tattoos with your book cover for kids, and I thought that was brilliant too.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's a great idea.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what other types of marketing have you done, and what have you found that works best for you?
Well, to be honest, I think the personal appearances are most valuable because they're so multifaceted. But I've been trying to amplify my experience as well. A lot of writers, including myself, are shy. So, being out and boisterous and in everybody's face and look at me is not necessarily my forte, but I do it, and I've learned quite a bit, and I think I've grown. But I kind of prefer the backdrop of, okay, I need to make sure I've updated Goodreads. That's a great resource.
Yeah.
Worked through my fellow librarians that I work with. I even appeared at someone's book fair. I can't do that at the district where I work because that would be a conflict of interest as an educator. But I can go to the next district and appear at their book fair and have a little booth for kids and sign and do things like that. In fact, they had service dogs at that event. And so the kids would go and they would read to the service dogs. And I was so excited just to take a picture with the dog.
Yeah.
That's silly, but I'll pretty much try anything. And then if it doesn't work, then I go ahead and move on to the next thing. So I'm always open to ideas. And I think as fast changing as our world is, that's really what's more helpful than having a very, very specific and limited mindset in your marketing.
Yeah. That's a great idea there that you've mentioned is taking pictures of your books in various places. I've seen some very resourceful authors and how they've used social media to gain visibility for their books. They've taken pictures with their books in all kinds of various places. I think I've seen books in so many different places. It's amazing how that works out. What was probably one of the most interesting places that you've taken a picture of your books at?
Oh, man. Well, I really liked the dog.
Oh, okay.
The service dog was really fun and exciting. I've always got books in my trunk because after being asked a few times and not having a book with me, I realized how foolish that was. So I joke around that I've got, hidden stuff that I shouldn't have, paraphernalia in my trunk, and it's really children's books.
What about like bookmarks? Do you carry bookmarks around with you at all?
I've made bookmarks before, cards, posters. I mean, I'll try whatever seems like it'll work and get some attention. So I'm trying to think of something just truly out there. I don't know because I do so many things.
Yeah.
I love your idea about traveling with the books because I travel a lot just for myself, and I don't bring the books as much as I should, but I truly should.
It's a conversation starter. So if you're out and about in a coffee shop somewhere and you got your book with you or you got bookmarks, it's a conversation starter, or you have something that you can leave right there on a table or a desk or what have you.
Yes. And, somebody gave me an idea once of making postcards that have the links to where to book, and it says, "Hey, librarians," or something like that. And you can give those to the kids who their parent, for whatever reason, and that's fine, is not purchasing a copy. Then you can tell them, hey, if you take this to your local library, then maybe you'll get a copy there and you can read it at the library.
Oh, okay. So I'll share something that I've done. Probably one of the most out there things that I did as a marketing technique is I went to Staples and I got one of those little ink markers made with my website and basically on there, and I was stamping that thing everywhere that I could go, on the tree, on a piece of wood, on toilet paper, on a magazine, in a bookstore, you name it. That thing was stamped everywhere. I ran out of ink really fast because I put that thing everywhere.
That's a great.
That is visibility. Now, of course, you got to kind of be careful where you are, because you go to a bookstore, you don't want to be stamping books left and right. And
Yeah.
I've done that, but that's probably one of the most far out things that I've done in reference to marketing. So I see that you're a nominee for the 2019 Top Female Authors by the Author Show. What has been your experience with entering your books into awards or contests?
Well, like a lot of things, when you enter, you have to recognize that there are many, many entries, right?
Yes.
Shot you may get it. There's a shot you might. I haven't gotten the results of the top female author yet.
Okay.
I've had great experiences with others. The Unhuggables, there's a website called Authors Talk About It. And so when it first came out, I entered it in their cover contest for the month, because I just love what Alexis did with the cover. And we actually won best cover for October, November of that year. So that was really great. But recently I was surprised. I didn't know in advance that the publisher at 4RV was entering books for the Children's Literary Classics Awards. Mm-hmm. Out of nowhere, we got this email to all of the authors saying, hey, we have award-winning books. And there was another book on there, and I was just reading it because I keep up with that, and I had no idea because they notified me yet directly. And then I saw my name, and I was just floored, and I thought, oh, wow, this is a game changer. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't want to get too excited because right now I'm a finalist. So, I don't want to shout over the moon and then, it doesn't make it. So, I held my breath for at least a month there, just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I got the news that yes, for historical fiction in the middle grade chapter category, we got a silver. So last month, I traveled up to South Dakota to Rapid City, City of the Presidents, and got to go to the Great American Book Festival and have my booth there and meet all the other fabulous authors, participate in the author roundtable, and then do the red carpet and get my actual medal. So kids are running for the money. I have a medal now too. Medal for my book, and just now it's recently been reprinted with the award on the cover. I just got copies of the paperback with it today, and hardback should be coming along shortly. So it's very, very exciting, and I just feel honored and floored about that. It's such a huge, huge compliment more than anything.
Yeah. So book awards, they basically reward authors for many different things, ranging from book covers to how well a book is written to, the illustration, this, that, and the other. And what exactly is your writing process? Because I know that that's one of the things that can be awarded for is writing or writing process. What does your writing process look like?
I don't know what a normal writing process is. Mine is. So it may be common or uncommon, but I always have notebooks everywhere, which is quite messy and scattered. But the notebook is with me because, ideas strike you in the most random of time and place. So, I could be at the bookstore, I could be at the grocery store, I could be paying bills, I could be at work, trip far away and not have a laptop accessible to write. So I carry just a trashy little spiral notebook with me. And so I write in there what I call one-liners, because they're jokes, but it's that snippet, whatever it was that struck me at that moment. I write it in there. Yeah. And it's very haphazard and not organized at all, because at that point, I don't have the full picture. I just have what struck me and what I think would strike someone else. And then when the pieces all start coming together in my head, that's when I write it out in a trashy spiral notebook. And once that draft is done and I feel like, okay, I can express this fully, that's when I transfer it onto the computer and edit and try to clean it up a little bit. Yeah. It's kind of weird. I just found one of my trashy little notebooks the other day, and I was alarmed that I forgot about the story completely that I'd written in there. And now I'm I'm learning it all over again. So it's exciting and fun, and there's scribbles and tears and notes for, some bill I had to pay. But it's interesting. It reminds me of Fight Club when they go into the house and there are all those notebooks about, Jack's kidney speaking and things like that's kind of it right now.
I know myself. So I used to write things down on paper, and now with devices and everything, I pretty much record onto my iPhone all the time. So oh my goodness, I've recorded so many voice messages, video messages. I'm driving in my truck, and I got the phone facing up to my chin, and I'm recording a video message as I'm driving. So whatever captures the idea, and that's really, really kind of what it is. You capture the essence of something in its raw form, and then you can go back and modify it, edit it later, or what have you. So,
Yes.
with that being said, what exactly is the hardest thing for you to write? Do you find any parts or pieces challenging to write?
Um, I really, more than anything, want to make sure that whatever I write, whether it's for children, adults, and anything in between, that it's something that they haven't read before.
Mm,
And, now there's so many movies out there and stories and books that sometimes that's hard. Sometimes you think something is truly original and then you go back and it's not.
yeah.
So, sometimes you write all the way through something and then you realize that was very predictable. And I don't enjoy reading predictable things or watching predictable things. So I change it. So a lot of times what I do is I know the beginning, I know where I'm starting, I know where I'm ending, and I struggle in the middle a little bit because I'm not quite sure how I'm getting to that twisted ending just yet.
Mm,
I guess that's where I get mixed up, is I'm so excited to get to the end because it's the end that I find so fascinating, that really just drew my attention, that I might skip a few details on the way. So I have to really focus on that middle section.
mhm. Do you have any particular what software do you use? Do you use a particular bit of software when you do your writing, or no?
No, after I deal with my messy notebook, I write it up in Word. A lot of publishers, that's the format that they want you to use to send over, sometimes PDF. And when it comes to screenwriting, of course, formatting is very difficult for screenwriting. So you don't want to waste a lot of time getting it onto the page because of formatting. You want to spend the time on content, getting it on there. So there's some free websites that format it for you or make it really easy to write in screenplay format. There's Celtics, CELTX.com.
Okay.
And all you do is choose, action or dialogue, and then whatever you type in, it formats it exactly as it would be in a script.
Okay.
Studio Binder is another great one for that.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's a lot of resources that are out there. I think Scrivener is one. I mean, there's so many different things. I use Word myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the very first book that I wrote, it took me 17 hours to try to figure out how to get the formatting right, and it still didn't look right. And then when I discovered that it looked different on different devices, I just gave up and said, you know what, there it is, publish.
Yes. Formatting and autocorrect are my arch enemies.
Yeah. So tell me, have you ever experienced writers?
Yes, I think all writers do. Just when it's dry, I don't know if it's necessarily even writer's block. It's that I have that little idea and I'm so excited about it, and I just can't figure out how to get the rest of it to come out.
Mm,
Matt, I very rarely am completely dry on ideas because I like writing about so many things.
yeah.
I mean, I may write just a general nonfiction piece about a trip that I took, or I was writing a lot of travel content for a while locally in the Dallas area, or best of articles for certain websites. So when I was dry creatively, I would just go ahead and focus on the non-creative writing. Well, there's still creative aspects to it because you want it to be readable and fun and exciting, but it wasn't a story I was telling. Or maybe that's when I refocus on a freelance project. So it may still be a creative project, but it's not my creative project. And so it's easier to get through those speed bumps that way.
Okay. So what current projects or future projects do you have going on?
Well, I'm currently awaiting news from one of my publishers about a book, another children's story. So I don't want to say yay or nay yet because it's received positive response, but until it's under contract. That's the way it goes in the industry.
I understand.
On hold with that, but I'm also writing short stories that I'm converting into screenplays for short film, and this year hope to finish writing a full-length feature script. So I was working on the crew for a while for a film just this spring, and have kind of ghostwritten and co-written some other pieces. So I'm hoping to also focus on some other areas of my writing, because I think, if you're a writer or an actor or an artist, you don't only do one thing. That may be what people recognize you for, is this one very specific thing. It's like being typecast. So I want to make sure I'm a writer. So I don't want to be typecast as only a children's writer. I want to be my whole self. And that encompasses some other writing genres as well.
Okay. So if you could share one golden nugget with any young or aspiring or even a more seasoned author, what would that golden nugget or that big advice be?
Oh, please edit.
I can relate to that.
But yes, in the beginning, I was going to different critique groups.
Okay.
When you write your story, it's your baby, and so you don't really see it. The reader would see it or for what it is or how it is. And so it's very helpful to get the opinions of fresh eyes. Right. Even if they're less experienced than you, it's still maybe that may be what your reader would get from it. So I came across a lot of great ideas, but they were sharing them before they'd even been remotely edited. And, if you're submitting a story that way because you wrote it and you were excited and you were up all night and boom, done, autographed it on your page and then you send it out, you're doing yourself a big disservice. They have submission guidelines for a reason, and it's to make sure that you've complied with whatever needs they have. You're trying to fulfill their needs, not the other way around. So don't make sure that you have first edited and they can tell, it's going in the pile. The editor's job in the publishing industry is really just to, add the frosting. It's not to put the ingredients in the cake. So you have to make sure you edited it first.
Yeah, I like your analogy there. That's a great analogy on how to look at that. And I can absolutely relate to that. I have one of my books that it took me 3 months to write, but it took me 6 months to edit. I went through that thing line by line because I did not want any outside perspective to look at it. And listening to what you had to say right there, it seems like there are a lot of authors out there that get that absolutely wrong, where they don't edit their book, they don't hire somebody to take a look at it, they don't get fresh eyes or even beta readers or anything like that for that matter. So did you have any beta readers have a look at your book, or what type of outside perspective did you have?
I did not. I was just very thorough with my editing. And even that being said, you wouldn't believe. It's like when you put your heart and soul into a paper and give it to your teacher and they send it back and it looks like they've literally murdered it with blood everywhere from the red pen.
Yes.
We're going to get that anyway, because the editor or the publisher has a perspective that you don't have. So, and they know what they're looking for and where they're going. So they're still going to, brutalize you in the process.
That's their job.
Yes. So I didn't use an outside party, but I did use critique groups where I knew, I didn't really think about it that way, or I didn't realize there was a hole in the story because in my head it was complete. But I didn't make sure that I communicated the full story on the paper. SCBWI, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's the Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators. It's a nationwide organization, and they have local chapters all over the country. And so that's a great resource to get together with other like-minded people and to have your book or your manuscript critiqued by someone else who has a different knowledge than you. So that's a great way to get started, because I've told people before, your mama's going to tell you that they love the book because mama, your cousin's going to tell you that, your best friend, your boyfriend, they're all going to tell you that.
Friends and family they're definitely the worst ones to have beta readers.
Yes, they're the best ones when it comes to shouting your name out and telling everybody about your book and getting the word out there. They're fabulous for that. But when it comes to making sure that you've got it professionally ready to submit, don't. Send it to somebody or get together with somebody who isn't worried about your feelings. They're worried about whether or not it's ready to be submitted.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today and sharing your valuable knowledge and experience. I wish you all the best in everything that you do. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to join me in this conversation.
Thank you very much, Terry. I had a great time, and I appreciate you having me out. I look forward to hearing from your other interviewees as well, because there's always something new to learn.
Absolutely. All right, so if you'd like to connect with more from Kenna Sosa, you can do so by visiting her website, kennamayfieldsosa.wixsite.com. You can also connect with her on social media. She's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads. And to all the members of the author community, I wish you all the best and continued success. Keep writing that next bestseller, and I will see you in the next video.